So we're coming into the sub. This is the only toilet available on a deep diving submersible. Best seat in the house. You can look out the viewport. We put a privacy screen in, turn up the music, and it's very popular. We have our control screen here, our sonar screen here, and we can put any image we want in the back. We've taken a completely new approach to the sub design, and it's all run with this game controller and these touch screens. So if you want to go forward, you press forward. If you want to go back, you go back. Turn left, turn right, go down, go up. And it's Bluetooth, so I can hand it to anybody. And it's meant for a 16-year-old to throw it around, and super durable. We keep a couple of spares on board.
Please allow me to go on a rant really quickly, because I've been holding this one in for over 24 hours now. When I first heard about this story, about this missing submarine or sub that vanished while trying to explore the Titanic wreckage, you know, the first thing that came to my mind was this is absolutely terrifying. The next thing that came to my mind is, you know, I would never do this, but it must be really cool to go down there and explore this wreckage. I hear that tickets for this sub cost around $250,000. So I'm thinking in my mind, everyone on board probably has a nice comfy seat. They probably have their own little window that they can look out and see, you know, the aquatic life. You can see the shipwreckage. Man, that must be cool. But in reality, that's not the case at all. I think there may be one window on this thing. People are paying $250,000 to sit Indian style in a tin can that drops to the bottom of the ocean, that is being controlled by an Amazon controller, a video game controller that costs $30 on Amazon. That's what's happening here, people. You don't got windows all around you so you can peer out and look at sharks and seahorses. No. You're looking at a freaking wall. You're looking at the people next to you. You are cramped up in this little tin can that's the size of a minivan, sitting on the hard floor, watching as some nice gentleman controls your submarine with a $30 Bluetooth controller. I wouldn't even use that controller on my video game systems. Every video game system that I have has a better controller than the one that they're using to control a submarine that is thousands of feet below the ocean's surface. Half of this ship was put together with parts from Amazon. This ship had no freaking business being underwater in the first place, let alone selling tickets to tourists. If you're rich and you got nothing better to do with your life and you want to dive down in a tin can to the bottom of the ocean, fine. Don't try to invite other people to come along with you in your rinky-dinky piece of garbage, because that's what this ship is. They don't even have windows to look out of. They're looking at screen monitors. In all honesty, going down there, now that I know how this is, it is completely pointless. They're all sitting there looking at a wall. And then when they surface, they can tell everyone, we went and explored the Titanic. You didn't explore a damn thing. You got some dude with a video game controller taking you to the bottom of the ocean so you could look at grainy footage on a monitor of what may be out there in the ocean. You can literally watch a Titanic documentary and get the same effects. They're not really exploring anything. Oh yeah, take me 13,000 feet beneath the sea so you can show me grainy footage on a monitor that you're controlling with an Xbox controller to show me the wreckage of the Titanic, when people have already been down here countless times getting the same footage. There was nothing really to gain here. I'm sorry I'm going on this rant, but I'm looking at footage of this craft and I cannot believe that this is even possible. Who in their right mind would go on this thing? And don't get me wrong, I understand that if you're a tourist, maybe you don't understand the complexities of things, but if you put me in that little tin can and I see, wait, there's no windows, so that right off the bat lets me know that this is not worth it. And then I see you controlling it with a freaking remote control from Amazon. No, you better get me the hell off of this submarine. But it turns out that this sub is actually an experimental vessel. It has not been approved or certified by any regulatory body. And just to make matters worse, this same vessel just went missing for a couple of hours last summer, because it turns out 9 times out of 10, when they try to do this dive, something always goes wrong. They lose connection with the mothership. They are relying on Starlink, Elon Musk Wi-Fi to to still have a connection with the surface world. So one of the reporters who was on this little sub last year said that he got lost. The submarine that vanished during a tourist trip to the wreckage of the Titanic had gotten lost for about 2.5 hours during a similar trip last year. The Ocean Gate Expedition's 5-man Titan sub was featured in a CBS Sunday morning segment last year. During the segment, Pogue narrated that the submarine had lost connection with the ship, guiding its movement underwater, ruining the trip some tourists paid $250,000 to join. There is no GPS underwater, so the surface ship is supposed to guide the sub to the ship wreckage by sending text messages. But on this dive, communications somehow broke down. The sub never found the wreckage, and we went missing for around 2 hours. So if you ask me, this is perfect evidence to show us that this little ship, they had no business selling tickets. Half the time you try to go down here, it doesn't work. And to think that you can't even know where you're going, you don't even know where you're going. Someone at the surface is sending you text messages like, hey, use the analog stick to turn right. Smash B and then A and then X and you will do a super combo. This is like freaking Street Fighter, okay? They're down there playing freaking Street Fighter on their game pads. What in the hell is wrong with these people? What in the hell is wrong with these people? You know, a lot of people have been talking about a lot of people have been negative about this whole story because for the most part, there's a bunch of rich people on board. And, you know, a lot of people just don't seem to care as much when it comes to rich people. I'm not here to act that way. I don't feel that way. I understand that, you know, some people are successful. I don't demonize people just for being successful. But at the same time, you have to make smart decisions. And when looking at this craft, the bad outweighs the good. Like, in my opinion, it doesn't look like a pleasant experience. Now, if it looked like a pleasant, really cool experience, that may be one thing. But this is basically something that these rich people do just to say they did it. You don't even really get to see anything. There's not even a toilet on board. You have to take craps in a plastic bag. You're down there for like 10 hours. Oh, man, I wouldn't want to do this. But I want you all to learn a little bit more about this vessel. I want to show you a couple of more clips. Before I do, hit that thumbs up button. I'm going to roll this footage and then I'll be right back with more.
An experimental submersible vessel that has not been approved or certified by any regulatory body and could result in physical injury, disability, emotional trauma, or death. Where do I sign?
Oh, take your shoes off. That's customary. Okay. Wow.
Inside, the sub has about as much room as a minivan.
So this is not your grandfather's submersible. We only have one button. That's it. It should be like an elevator. You know, it shouldn't take a lot of skill.
The Titan is the only 5-person sub in the world that can reach Titanic depths, 2.4 miles below the sea. It's also the only one with a toilet. Sort of. And yet, I couldn't help noticing how many pieces of this sub seemed improvised.
We can use these off-the-shelf components. I got these from Camper World. we run the whole thing with this game controller.
Come on!
It's so small. How big is it, and how long were you told you could survive in it?
It's about the size of a minivan, but it's a cylinder, so it holds 5 people. There's no chairs, there's no couches. You are sitting on the floor with your back against the curved sides. As I'm sure you've heard, there's 4 days worth of air. There's 3 different systems. There's as your previous guest referred to, there's a scrubber, the same ones they have in spacecraft, that converts the carbon dioxide you breathe out back into oxygen. If that fails, there are these, they look like fly strips, you hang them from the ceiling, that they're backup scrubbers. And if that fails, they have scuba tanks, oxygen tanks, under the floor of this thing that you can pull out. But there's no food and water apart from the one sandwich and the one water bottle you bring with you. All there is by way of a toilet is basically a big Ziploc bag.
Now, to even get on this sub, you have to sign a massive waiver that literally lists multiple ways in how you can die on this sub. One person who took this trip wrote, it mentions at least 3 times on page 1 ways in which you could die on the trip. So it's never far from your mind, but you try to put it out. But as I was getting onto the sub, that was my thought. Well, this could be the end. So nobody who's in this situation was really caught off guard. You know how bad things can go. But you all know what you're getting into. It's really exploration. It's not a vacation, and it's not thrill-seeking. It's not like skydiving or something. These are people, these are explorers and travelers who want to see something. Well, the only problem is you don't get to see a damn thing while you're down there. You're looking at cheap monitors bought off Amazon that shows you murky, grainy footage of a shipwreck that you could have seen literally on the surface on YouTube. I can go on YouTube right now and get a way better look at the Titanic wreckage than you will aboard this ship. And like I said earlier, there's nothing cool about it. You don't got windows, you don't got nothing. You got a bottle of water and maybe a PB&J sandwich if you're lucky, and you're just cramped, smelling the breath of other billionaires while you're down there. That's basically what it is. A bunch of billionaires that like to smell each other's farts. You sit in there in a hot box of farts 12,000 feet below the ocean's surface, looking at a shipwreck that you can't even look at because all you got is monitors and a cheap GoPro outside of your submarine that looks like you taped it together with duct tape. Oh man, I am telling you right now, I know that the families of everyone on board, they're already rich and set for life, but this is a lawsuit. This is a lawsuit. The creator of this craft, he had to have known. At some point, when you find yourself sitting Indian style with a $29.99 video game controller in your hand, while looking at a monitor that was super glued to the side of a tin can while you're 12,000 feet below the ocean surface, at some point you gotta have that realization set in like, yeah, I know I'm rich, but this is dumb as this is dumb. At some point, you need to look around and be like, this is stupid. This is completely stupid. I honestly think that most regular people, low-income people, poor people, middle-class people, you probably couldn't even pay them to get on this craft. But it is what it is. Don't get me wrong. Even though I went on this little rant, I had to let it out. It doesn't mean that I don't feel for the people on board. I am very sympathetic for the families and the people on board. I've talked about that already, but at the same time, some things need to be said, and this had to be said, because I feel like the mainstream media, they're taking it easy when it comes to this situation, because all signs point towards the fact that this craft should have never been in that water that day or any day. This craft had no business going under the ocean It had no business selling tickets to people to come aboard. This is just an all-around messed up situation. And the more I learn about it, the more I see how avoidable this was and how batshit crazy you have to be to think that this submarine that you put together yourself, it's basically homemade, to think that this is capable of taking all of these journeys deep down into the ocean. Just let me know your thoughts about this. Feel free to rant down in the comments below. I feel like I got a lot off my chest here. Let me know your thoughts. Hit the thumbs up button. Hit that subscribe button. Ring that notification bell. And remember never to get in a tin can and dive in the ocean. It's just not worth it.